Hey everybody, my name is Eric Escobar. Today I'm going to be talking to you about goal-based penetration testing. Very exciting. This is what we do day in and day out. And I have the peanut gallery right in front of me, heckling me. There you go. Thank you, peanut gallery. All right, so this was Taylor Swift themed, not by my choice, but because it feels like I introduced one Taylor Swift thing years ago, and now that's just my persona at CypherCon. So instead of saying my origin story, I'm going to say this is my debut album. Hopefully there's some Swifties out there. Anyone? Anyone? There we go. There we go. Okay. I actually am a pretty big Taylor Swift fan. But so I started, let's see, I went to school for civil engineering. That's like building bridges and dams and like things that aren't electronic, like specifically things that aren't electronic. And then I got an opportunity just by helping somebody out. They're like, hey, you seem like you're pretty good with computers. And I was like, I guess. And they're like, what if we replace that, meager engineering salary right out of school to come work on and be an analyst? And so I was like, sure, why not? What the heck? I get to wear flip-flops instead of steel-toed boots. So I jumped at that chance for the same amount of pay. So the whole reason that I say that is I talk to a whole bunch of different schools, a whole bunch of different universities, and I have different students that come to me and they're like, what's the best thing that I can do for my career? And it is genuinely just help people. If you help people, everything else will work itself out. You will find a job. There's been several times being at DEF CON or Black Hat where you help somebody move tables, chairs, gaffing tape, you name it, and that person happens to be the CFO or the CTO or someone who's looking to hire somebody. So whenever you're looking for career advice, that's the number one thing that I found. So just like Taylor Swift, I was also born in 1989, so you can use that for your OSINT in one of the OSINT challenges. So see, you guys are one of the few people at the talk that actually have the answer to the OSINT challenge right here. Let's see, so I am a tech lead at SecureWorks. Basically, all that means is that they ask me how not to do things, it feels like. That didn't even come from the peanut gallery. Geez. Basically, our team is the best team throughout the entire company. We're full of hackers. We do cool engagements. We do really cool stuff. I've about 15 years of doing this, and I've done. I'm at DEF CON all the time, so that's probably I know most of you if I don't work with you. I've given talks. I've written articles. I've done a bunch of stuff. Really, none of it matters a lot. It just keeps me doing the cool job, right? I feel like doing the marketing piece, giving talks, doing all that stuff keeps me doing the cool, fun stuff, getting the cool work, doing, getting all the cool gizmos and all that kind of stuff. A little bit about our team. We do like 2,000 engagements annually. A lot of this is just one of those things of just, I don't know, we show it to clients, potential clients to be like, hey, check us out. Look at all these things. Look at all of our certifications. I don't really care about it because if you talk to anybody in our team for all of 10 minutes, you'll know that we know what we're talking about and that we can perform. So the whole point of this talk is goal-based penetration testing. Every time I hop on a sales call, the conversation goes a little bit like this. It goes, hey, so have you ever done penetration testing? And you're like, yes, we have. We've done penetration testing for 10 years. Oh, cool. Can you tell me a little bit about what that pen testing is like? Yeah, so they kick off Nessus. And then it's like, cool, okay, we'll be domain admin in about a day, if not sooner. And so what we find is that we have to reprogram some of our clients. Pen testing is not it's not an industry term, right? There's like, we see many of our clients that come to us and they say, oh, well, yeah, we do a pen test. And it's literally just a glorified, it might just be a Nessus report that's white labeled with like their logo on it. And so that's one of those things that when we look at that, like that's not a true penetration test. Like they're not exploiting, they're not trying to gain access, they're not trying to subvert anything. They're just scanning and giving you a laundry list of what's available, what services are there. And I feel like, and maybe this is like a bit of a faux pas or, not recognized by a lot of other people, but I feel like when you have a laundry list of things to do, if you have a Nessus scan across even a medium-sized organization, that's a lifetime of work that you could have just patching hosts, patching servers, making sure that there's not internal SSL v3, which if you do a Nessus scan and you look at your internal network, there's gonna be tons of random SSL errors because that is not the priority, but it lights everything up like a Christmas tree. So what we do instead is we say, okay, well, when we're talking to the clients in that same conversation of like, we do pen testing a little bit differently. Let's explain to you our approach to pen testing, what we do and why we choose it to be that way. We do goal-based. The first question I ask is, what makes you afraid? What are you worried about? We often talk to CTOs, CISOs, directors of technology, and we say, what are you worried about? And that's different for every industry. That's different for every company that even share the same industry. So we might have a hospital. Hospital goes, you know what? Life and safety are on the line. Our number one goal is that the lights stay on and patient records stay available and that ORs stay operational. But that's completely different than some of our other clients that are, say, food manufacturers, and their whole thing is like, look, we have a secret formula that can't get out. This is our intellectual property and will be ruined if this intellectual property gets out. Now, if either one of those two places were to go by a traditional pen test or a vulnerability assessment, they're going to get the same exact thing. They're going to get an unauthenticated Nessus scan of their environment, and they're not going to know how to prioritize. They're not going to, that's not going to necessarily keep them any safer. It's just going to give them a lot more work, and it's going to even worse, burn the resources that they do have trying to patch things that maybe don't matter. And so that's where we ask that question of, what keeps you awake at night? Because that informs a lot of it. Then you get into their stories. You get into the stories of like, oh man, well, turns out we got ransomware last year, or hey, we had some data leak, or hey, somebody's cashing checks and we don't know how they're finding out how to like mint checks as us. And so there's lots of really fun things that when you ask that question that get brought up of like, check that out. Like, this will actually be a fun engagement. And that keeps your pen tester engaged. That keeps like anyone on our team engaged, because it's not just press the scan button, validate the results. It's like, hey, we're going to go hunt for the CEO's, email credentials. We're going to go try and log into the camera system. We're going to see if we can make that molten thing of steel move a quarter of an inch and freak out every engineer on the floor. Those are all things that we've done before. And it definitely has that extra punch to what you're doing when it comes to any of the technical stuff and talking to even non-technical folks. Then I'm sure since you guys are all at a security conference, you probably heard of red team, purple team, blue team, all that kind of stuff. I really hate pretty much any one of those terms. And somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm a red teamer, like, oh, well, I'm on the blue team, or, oh, like, check out our new purple team, offering that we have. Really at the end of the day, like goal-based pen testing, it's kind of all those things in one. I had a client a couple days ago where they needed help patching a certain host. And so we just lather, rinse, repeat the same exploit over and over and over and over and over until eventually they figured out how to patch it, or at least block the port that that service was being offered on. And so it's one of those things, again, a Nessus scan. And I know I like hammer down on the Nessus scan, but that's not going to fix that problem. That's not going to prevent that breach. That's just going to waste your time, waste your resources. And so we kind of combine all those things into one in just our main adversarial testing, where you come to us and you say, hey, this is the service that we provide, and we get just do cool, fun stuff with it. So our typical testing journey, like I said, vulnerability assessments, sure. Can you do them? Absolutely. Should you do them? No. Really what we then do is we kind of go down the end of the spectrum, but we have penetration testing, which is our bread and butter. That's what we do day in and day out. We have our internals, our externals, our Wi-Fi's. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But then we have things that are like collaborative, right? Collaborative basically just adds more time to a penetration test and just lets you watch our screen. It lets you see the logs of what we're doing. It lets you repeat different attack scenarios over and over and over. And again, it's more of training your team, training your staff, whether you have somebody on your staff that wants to be adversarial and they want to learn and see what tools do we use, what commands, what switches, what options do we use in the tooling that we have. And then on the other side of it, if you have a defender on your network, or somebody who's like your network architect, or somebody who's in the trenches fixing these, it gives them a way better idea of like, oh, this is why Eric is looking at this. This is why Teresa is looking at this. This is why Carlos is looking at this, right? Is because these are the things that are actually going to be used to actually breach, right? And then we also have like on the full like far right hand side of this is our adversary simulation, which is like full custom C2, full custom everything. It's meant to be secret squirrel. You'll never see us, at least hopefully. Oh, look at that! Look at that top left image. Who is that guy right there? So, like I said, we do really fun things. So there's the red team, there's the purple teaming, there's the pen testing, but we can also go dig deep into things that normally end users and higher ups, they don't want us to touch. So all the hardware, embedded, IoT, SCADA, ICS, There's a lot of companies that we've broken into because of our approach that are SCADA and ICS. And for those of you that maybe don't test it or not in the industry, those are like big heavy equipment things. Anything that's like SCADA, ICS, that has might be computer connected, may not be computer connected or network connected, but it moves giant things. It's industrial processing equipment. It could be giant water pumps that run your city. It could be a dam control system that lets water flow out. I used to be a civil engineer, so we used to do a bunch of that kind of stuff. But now that more and more of these get put on the internet, it's really terrifying. And kind of like, if you think about like critical infrastructure, nobody wants to test critical infrastructure because it can never go down. It can you can't just be like, hey, hold on, let's put that, that damn sluice gate on hold real quick while we, while we're going to do some testing. That can't happen. And so when we talk with our different clients and it's like, hey, this is our approach. And we can make it as custom as you want and tailor it to exactly what they want to see. And so when you think of a generic pen test of like, hey, end user comes in, end user does, a pen tester is going to just try and hit it with a service scan. We come in with more of a velvet glove approach of, hey, we know what the host is, we know what the services are. And so that allows clients that would normally never, ever want to touch security with a 10-foot pole because they're worried about taking something offline, trust us a little bit and say, hey, okay, like security is important. And then they can actually build that in their process. And if you look at it from that perspective, you have on one hand, they would do absolutely no testing at all because they were worried that it was going to break. And then when a real world adversary came in or real world threat actor came in, then they'd be left with their pants down because they had never done any type of testing and they had no documentation. They had no security surrounding any of it, or at least none that had been like battle hardened and battle tested. We also do super fun stuff, social engineering. That's one of those things when we talk about clients and say, hey, what are you most worried about? A lot of them, it's also the social engineering of like, hey, we know that our maybe our external perimeter security of our website and VPN all have MFA and are pretty good. But when it comes down to the actual like physical security, anybody with a hard hat can walk in with a ladder. Everybody's seen the TikTok videos where that's possible, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, hey, that's all they need to get in. So basically, this is where we can look at things and give clients, like after we speak with clients, we're on the phone with them and we say, hey, okay, this is like, you've told us a story, you've told us what you're most worried about. Let's kind of like tailor something to what sounds good. So we've done tests where it's like, hey, we think we have this new like fancy switching infrastructure that's all VLANed and segmented out and all of our sites are separate. And so we'll build out a testing methodology and strategy that says, hey, let's go and not just do a test. Let's see, can we hop from one VLAN to another VLAN? Can we access a compromised host on your plant floor? We're able to answer some of those questions that are kind of gnawing at the CISO in the back of their mind. So then kind of going down that, it's very similar to that last rabbit hole of our custom type of testing. We'll do stolen laptop tests. Some clients say, hey, you know what? We actually had a laptop that was swiped while the CEO, CFO was at the gym. Then what happens? Then what are we doing? We're like, hey, great. You can give us a laptop, power it off, keep it in sleep mode, keep it in suspend mode, whatever type of setups their gold images use for their laptops, for their end user devices. And we'll test it. We'll see, hey, can we read keys out of memory? Can we do some TPM bypass? Do they even have BitLocker or some type of full disk encryption at rest? And so when we go through and we identify, hey, what does this client want? What does this client need? That's absolutely within that wheelhouse of what that looks like. And so basically the whole part of this is not just like, oh, look what Eric does, look what the SecureWorks team does, right? The whole point of this is saying, like, this is how we as an industry should be doing penetration testing. Because at the end of the day, when I give a client a report, so often do they have previous penetration test reports that are just like a laundry list, right? And every client report, I want to make sure that that's a box of ammunition that they can use to go prove to the rest of their team that, hey, this like security is important, not just because look at all the red, look at all the yellow, look at all the purple, right, for all your highs, criticals, and mediums. But in reality, like, like this is what Eric was able to do. He was able to read the signal. He was able to do X, Y, or Z. And so the CEO who may not be a technical person at all, it's like my mom. My mom is a very smart woman, but she needs help updating her iPhone, right? And she is like how I view that very high level class of people of very smart, but they need to be, like, explain to me like I'm 5, explain the risk to me, show me how this impacts the bottom line. And so often I feel like vulnerability assessments that just do that laundry list, that those don't really get to the meat that your C-suite really want to get to. So that's what I think we should be doing as an industry. Does anybody have any questions? I kind of rattled through that pretty quickly, but way in the back. My entry point into pen testing was, so I started Blue Team at Barracuda Networks, and then I started doing a lot of CTFs. And actually, the way that I got a job is, I don't see him in the audience. I was at CypherCon year 1, and Trenton Ivy, who, again, if he's here, Trenton was like, hey, you seem pretty good at this. You should come apply at SecureWorks. Hey, there he is, way in the back. Yeah, that's how I broke in, that guy in the hat. If you want a job, go talk to him. Follow-up question. Who does or does not? I didn't hear. Gosh, that's a hard question. So I did the DEF CON wireless ETF. Like that's the one that I did over and over and over again. So the training that I think would be best is Toastmasters. I don't know if anybody knows what Toastmasters, but public speaking, like genuinely, like the amount of points that I've gotten out of CTFs by just bribing judges or just bringing a piece of pizza or getting to know somebody and social engineering out of them, like it could be social engineering, or you could just be a genuinely nice human being that cares about people and wants to do good in the industry. Like one of them is like sly and devious, and the other one is like, oh, you're a pretty good person, and good people like want to hire good people. So, any other questions? Right there in the back. Oh, that's a solid question. I gotta add that as a slide. I think any type of narrative, any type of human-based explanation of why is this happening. I see a lot of pen test reports because I'm a pen tester, but I see them from other companies, and a lot of times it's just like command output, command output, command output, without any like articulating as to like why does this matter? Like I remember we were talking with somebody who I thought was very technical, and I was like, yeah, well, we dumped the domain using secrets dump, compromised this host with an NTLM relay, and they're like, okay, so what? I don't know what any of that means. And to their credit, that's absolutely right. Their job was not to understand what that meant. My job is the one to explain that, oh, I can act as any user on your network, period, in with these three attacks chained together. And he's like, oh, okay, there you go. But yeah, if you're evaluating a pen test report, that's the number one thing that I would say is like human level explanations as to why things matter. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? All right, thank you everybody. I'm glad I was the first talk because now I can just enjoy the rest of CypherCon.